All right, welcome to our second lesson for chapter 6. This is 6.2. We're going to talk about biomes a little bit. So this will just be an introduction, talking about what biomes are, and then our next couple of lessons are going to go over terrestrial biomes and aquatic biomes. So learning objective here is that you'll be able to describe how biomes are categorized and how different factors affect them. So ultimately, biomes are determined by climate. And biomes are terrestrial climax communities with wide geographic distribution. So if you remember from our last lesson, when we talked about succession, we talked about climax communities. And that's when an ecosystem goes through those stages of succession, whether it's primary, secondary, but the plant life and the organisms get more complex as time goes on and it gets more biodiverse and stable. And that climax community is what we get at the end of succession that's stable and fits that climate. So when different communities within a biome are examined, they will show differences in the exact species present, but the general structure of the ecosystem and the kinds of niches and habitats present are similar throughout. So for example, a type of biome would be a desert. So we could have the Sahara Desert, or we could have Death Valley, any other kind of desert. Those things are going to look very similar, but the exact species there, plant life and animal life, are going to be a little bit different. So the two primary non-biological factors that have a major impact on the kinds of climax communities that develop in any part of the world are temperature and patterns of precipitation. So temperature, how hot or cold it gets throughout the year, and kind of the pattern for that, but also patterns of precipitation. So it cannot just be how much rain it gets, it's how that rain is distributed. So some biomes are going to get rain all year round. Like Oklahoma's a grassland. We get rain in the summer and we get rain in the winter. When we look at places that are more coastal, like Chaparral, that's not going to get rain year round, but it's going to get a lot of rain in like the winter and maybe fall and spring. So the pattern of precipitation is really important. So these are the different biomes of the world. They're all listed down here, but we have tundra up near the poles. Those deserts kind of go along this line here. So we can kind of see a pattern. They kind of like stripe along at the same longitude that we have, or latitude that we have. All right, so precipitation and temperature is what determines these different ecosystems, or biomes, I mean. So the colder it gets is going up this way, and then so our temperature's over here and our precipitation is down here. So if it's really dry, it's going to be in this one. So if it's really cold and doesn't get any precipitation, that's going to be tundra. If it's really hot and doesn't get a lot of precipitation, that would be desert. Now, if it's pretty warm and gets a lot of rain, that's a temperate rainforest, and if it's really hot, it's a tropical rainforest. In the names, you can usually get a little bit of information about what that biome is. So all of these three right here, they are in the warm but not hot range. Temperate means like moderate, so comfortable. Usually it's going to be like from 65 to maybe 85 degrees. Is going to be the temperatures in these areas on average. When we get into hot and tropical, tropical means it's hot. And then everything else is going to be pretty cold. So patterns of precipitation and temperature are two primary non-biological factors that have major impact on the kinds of climax communities that develop in any part of the world. There's also an effect of elevation on climate and vegetation. So the distribution of terrestrial ecosystems is primarily related to precipitation and temperature. Temperature is warmest near the equator and cooler down towards the poles. So the sun hits the earth really focused along the equator and right above and below it, which is why it's warmer there. And it doesn't hit it as directly near the poles, so it's going to be a lot cooler. The same kind of thing happens with altitude. So if you have a mountain, which I know we don't really have in Oklahoma, but at the top of mountains, a lot of times you get a snow cap, and that's because as you go up in altitude, your temperature is also going to go down. So moving from sea level to mountaintops, it's possible to pass through a series of biomes that would be similar to what would be encountered moving from the equator up to the North Pole. And that's kind of what that looks like. So at the top of our mountain, we could have something like tundra or permanent snow, when at the bottom, it could be a broadleaf evergreen forest that's a little bit more warm and gets a lot of rain. And then that same thing's going to happen as we go from the equator up in latitude as well. All right, that is the end of this lesson. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next one.